the forums in various venues, and of course, various parts of the country. But for this particular one, we decided to move online. I think this is the second that we're having online because of the reasons that we're all aware of, COVID-19. But of course, the discussion and the quality and the issue that we're discussing remains the same, and we try as much as possible to ensure that we make it productive, we make it interactive, and we have some value addition at the end of it all. Today, we are going to talk about a very interesting subject that affects us, all of us in one way or the other, and that is the issue of circular economy approach to solid waste management. As we all know that a number of countries are actually moving towards circular economy approach to waste management from linear. And this is for good reasons. And of course, the panelists that we put here together are going to be able to give us some quick highlights or some insight into why we should, as a country, embrace the circular economy approach to waste management. We are aware that as a country, we've already made some steps. There's a lot of movement that has been made at the government level and also other players who are not necessarily in government. And we have policies that are being put in place. We have initiatives being undertaken to ensure that Kenya is also transiting to the aspect of circular economy. So one key aspect that will make this process succeed, and the countries that have already succeeded can be able to attest to this, is for the public to also be able to know exactly what this is all about and understand their roles and responsibility. Because at the end of the day, we are the waste generators. Where we live, where we work, wherever we are, we generate waste. And we must be able to understand how can we be able to take care of this waste in a way that is beneficial to our country and to the environment. And as we talk about transiting circular economy, there's urgent need, or there's very important need for the public to be made aware, to be informed about what it is all about, why we have to embrace it in the first place, what opportunities exist for us as a country to be able to accelerate even that process. What are some of the benefits that we are going to get out of it? But of course, we also expect that there are going to be some challenges which we need to be alive to and be able to put in place the necessary mitigation measures. So as CARA, as part of our efforts to sensitize resident associations and indeed the wider public, we have put together this platform to start this conversation on circular economy at waste management and ensure that as many of us as possible understand their roles and responsibility and are able to play their bit in ensuring that this particular approach to waste management actually succeeds and is entrenched in our country and becomes our way of life. So when we were looking at how to carry on this conversation, we looked at who can be able to talk about this from the government side. We also looked at other practitioners. We have people from Denmark Embassy who have some, what I could call, experience in dealing with this kind of approach to waste management, because the country has already done very well in that regard. We also have industry players. You'll be hearing from one lady called Joyce Tashudu Aweru, who's the country manager of Petco, and will be telling us about what they're doing with plastic bottles and also how they're supporting the whole aspect of circular economy to waste management. And of course, the regulator cannot be left out in this particular process, because NEMA bears the responsibility of making sure that they provide proper regulation and their local issue plans and enforcement to ensure that we are sustainably managing our environment. So today we are going to listen to the various speakers, and of course we are also expecting the ministry. I think the PS will be joining us. I think it's time to join Dr. Chris to talk to us from the point of view of the ministry. What is it that is being done to ensure that we are moving towards this aspect of waste management? So ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to talk much because we're also trying to catch up on time, and we have a rich panel to talk to us about this particular subject. So I'm going to stop at that and then allow our panelists to speak to us. But before I stop this being a webinar, maybe just a few house rules to make sure that we are ordered. We request all participants to remain muted unless given an opportunity to speak. And we are going to control that from our end just to ensure that we are orderly. We also encourage participants to post their comments on the chat box. You are able to, if you have a question or a comment, we encourage as much as possible to post on the chat box so that the panelists can be able to pick it up from there and respond to it. And for our panelists, we request that if there's a question that is posted on the chat box that's directly directed to you, you are free to respond to it directly on the chat box, or when you get an opportunity when making a presentation, you can touch on it. We will allow a few questions to be made verbally. So after the presentation, we'll have a plenary session where you can be able to ask a question to any of the panelists. And when you get that chance, we request that you make it straight and to the point, at least within a minute or so. We are also having this session being covered live through our Facebook platform. And we also have Twitter friend. Our hashtag is Kara Waste Management Forum. Hashtag Kara Waste Management Forum for those who want to engage through the Twitter platform. And feel free to tag us on our Twitter handle, Kara_cares, KE, Kara_cares, KE. So with those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to go straight to the program. And this is how we're going to roll out the program. Our first remark is going to come from Daniel Seberling. Daniel Seberling is the resident representative of Hans Seidel Foundation. As I mentioned at the beginning, these are our partners in this particular event. And we are just going to have a few minutes just to hear Thomas Jensen. Thomas is a sector councillor, environment and circular economy at the Royal Danish Embassy in Kenya. And we expect to hear from them some of the best practices from their country and from across the world, because I think they're ahead of us in this regard, and they're able to share with us some of the things they've been able to do and how they're also working with Kenya to support the whole initiative. We are then going to hear from Dr. Anne Omambia, who is the Chief Compliance Officer and Climate Change Coordinator at DEPA. And DEPA is the regulator, and as I mentioned, they are very, very key to this particular process. Lastly, we are going to hear from our peers, Dr. Chris Kipto, the Principal Secretary at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, we want to hear what the government is doing to make sure that we have a seamless transition to circular economy approach to waste management. And we are then going to have a brief session of plenary where you are going to ask a question. Like I say, we encourage you to post a question also and comments on the chat box so that we can be able to accommodate as much as possible, because we may not be able to have time to have everybody ask their question verbally. So make use of the chat box, and you can post your comment question in that particular space. So ladies and gentlemen, with those few remarks, let me request Daniel Seberling, the resident representative of Hans Seidel Foundation covering Kenya and Ethiopia, to make his opening remarks. And then we are going to go to our next presenter. So Daniel, if you can hear me, I request that you step forward and make a remark. You can unmute your mic.
Yes. Now I think you can hear me, right?
Okay, proceed. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Henry. It's an honor to be here to invite you for a few remarks today, because I think once again, Kara has chosen a very interesting topic, because circular waste management is not only a literally burning topic in Kenya, but also an area where resident associations can have a huge impact and should take care of the problem. Because, for example, when I look out of my apartment window, I see the schoolyard of one of Nairobi's primary schools. It's a boarding school. And every other evening, I see the burning of a heap of waste. It looks like it's mainly from the school meals. It's paper, cardboard, laminated paper, shrink wrap, and whatever, all thrown together. It's just a heap of waste, so it burns badly and makes a huge cloud of smoke. And even from far away, I can feel the toxic smell and the burning plastic which is going on there. True, they do care for the health of the kids in the school Kidogo. The burning ground is as far away from the dormitory as possible. But I'm asking myself, what could be done? What initiative could be helpful on such a case? And my first impulse as a German, of course, is if you burn it properly. Separate paper from plastic, let everything dry out, and make then a bonfire out of it. Well ventilated, closely guarded, and controlled. And of course, never ever burn plastic. But on a more serious note, what actually can be done? What kind of approach would be the right one? In Western Europe, we believe in the gold standard of waste power plants, where you use waste to create energy. But these things are very expensive to build and need an extensive waste infrastructure, and even more so, a waste culture to run properly. A waste culture that tries to squeeze out everything that can be reused or even burned without damaging the environment out of the collected waste, and find good places to deposit the rest. Controlled landfills instead of wild dumpsters, for example. Garbage collection initiatives and companies who collect garbage have to be tightly controlled how they work and what they do with the waste they collect. But that is easier said than done. It's no secret that in the 90s, 70s, and 80s, the waste industry in Italy was heavily controlled by organized crime. And it's just one example what happens. Or today it is virtually impossible to build a new waste power plant in Eastern Europe because investors do not believe that they will get their money back, and governments are not willing to spend hundreds of millions of euros for one single plant. So circular waste management needs to think from the beginning of the life cycle of a product and not of its end. And I think Kenya did a big step into the right direction by banning plastic bags, just simply as that. I remember the sad look of Greece's beaches in the late 1980s, where literally every bush was full of pink and bluish plastic bags. The wind was blowing all over the country on an unbelievable and crazy scale. They also banned these plastic bags, and the situation got a little better. But that momentum of Kenya by banning plastic bags should be taken further, avoiding unnecessary waste wherever it is possible. And like I said, I think residents associations are perfectly positioned to keep an eye on things, at least on what is going on in their neighborhood on the ground. And that journey, I think, has to start on a grassroots level, because it's always easy to look up what should be done on the government level, but very much depends on ourselves, how we behave and how consciously we treat our waste. Again, Kara, thanks for the invitation and thanks for the very interesting topic today. And I'm looking forward for our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that insight. Very informative, and of course, always appreciative of the partnership that we have with you. So we are going to go straight to our next presenter, and I'm going to request Joyce Kashugi Waweru, who is the country manager of Petco Kenya, to share with us insight on the subject of discussion. And I did mention that we request that each presenter take at least not more than 10 minutes to make the presentation so that we can have time for plenary. You can do your talk in 10 minutes, we'll appreciate it. So just if you can hear me, please take the floor. And
thank you, Henry. I can hear you. I just wanted to share a few slides. If the host could allow me to share.
okay. Can share now?
Okay, great.
as you can see.
Great. So thank you very much, Henry, and to the Kenya, of course, Alliance of Residents Association, a partner of PETCO Kenya, on putting together and convening a very timely topic on waste management, trying to develop a circular economy. I am Joyce Gashugi Waweru, as introduced by Henry. I am country manager of PETCO here in Kenya. And I will just run you through a few slides of who we are, what we do, and a case study of something that actually we've piloted in one of the residential areas here in Kenya, the Nyayo Embakasi Estate, with the aspiration, of course, that this will then inspire other residential associations to want to replicate the same. We are here to support where we can, and for where we cannot, then we'll provide guidance. So PETCO is a voluntary producer responsibility organization, and that basically means we represent other companies. We are an organization that is mandated to ensure that the companies that generate PET plastic bottles, what typically packages your soda, your water, some of your cooking oil, some of your milk products, your tomato sauce, etc., they pay some money into our organization, and we take a portion of those funds and we use them in the recycling and collecting of this packaging and putting it back into the ecosystem again. So we are operational in South Africa, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. South Africa, of course, being the birthplace of PETCO. It started about 17 years ago. Here in Kenya, we're only 3 years old, actually 3 years last week. And we are voluntary because the government, as of yet, has not fully passed any legislation that makes it mandatory for any company to be a part of a scheme like ours. So the companies that are part of us are actually doing it based on their own willingness to participate. Yeah. So as an organization, we have 3 strategic pillars. They are creating consumer and industry awareness, collection and recycling, as well as building partnerships. So under the consumer and industry awareness, this is of course one of the most critical for this audience, is where we actually come out and try and educate consumers on what PET packaging is. There's a lot of course, demonization, and sometimes rightly so, on plastics, because they are very widespread in our natural environment. There's a lot of poor disposal practices in and among us as a community. And so we find a lot of this packaging is blocking our drainages, is in our ocean ecosystems, and even in our forests and our parks. And so one of the key mandates for us as an organization is to go out there and to provide awareness to consumers through different types of interventions. But even that being said, even for our own industry players, we have a lot of awareness to create, because we want our own industry players, our manufacturers, to design and create products that can be recycled. Not all bottles, I can tell you now, can actually be recycled. There are some companies you'll find their water bottles have a sticky label that does not tear off easily. And what that usually means is collectors at our dump sites or within our homes at our curb sites will typically leave that bottle uncollected, because they know that the recycler is not going to be able to use it to make another product. And so those are some of the issues. We try to educate our industry players on such things. Also, another thing in Kenya, you find a lot of our drinking water bottles are light blue. In most other countries, Caspar, Thomas, and Daniel will tell you they are clear. And clear bottles have a better demand because you're able to convert them very easily from one product to another. For us here, we have a lot of blue, green, and other multicolored bottles, which makes it very difficult. And so you'll find that some of the initiatives we are trying to undertake with our own members are for them to change their bottles to clear packaging. And some of our members, for instance, Coca-Cola now, you'll find that the Sprite bottle that used to be color green is now actually clear in our markets. So when it comes to collection and recycling, this is probably the most important. I've seen NEMA and our PS environment are here. And this is because you find a lot of bottles are lying around in the streets. Our mandate, of course, because we believe recycling works, is to ensure that we contract recycling companies in the country. So we don't have our own recycling plants. We work with the value chain as it is. We provide a financial monetary subsidy to these recyclers, who are then able to purchase these bottles from the market for a better price. Okay. In 2017, before we started our operations, a kilogram of bottles was probably about 5 shillings per kilogram. Today, if you take a kilo of bottles to the recycler, they'll pay you 19 to 23 shillings. Okay. And that's partly because of the subsidy that we provide to them per kilogram. And then, of course, we have partnerships. Waste management, like every other activity of its nature, requires a lot of partnerships. No one organization, no one entity can do it. More importantly, the responsibility of managing waste and even making sure that whatever you have consumed ends up in a garbage bin is your responsibility as well as mine. And so we have a lot of linkages, including with CARA, the government, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and others who you will see shortly, that allows us to implement and undertake our mandate. So our strategy is simple. It's one of circularity. And what do I mean? That basically means from the time at which plastic is being generated. This is in the crude oil refinery process, where when you're refining crude, you make resin that actually is used to make the plastic bottles. That resin is usually imported into Kenya, either from Saudi Arabia, from China, or from the UAE, where then it is used to make new bottles or new plastic packaging in our country. Once that happens, that material it actually packages the products. It's taken to our supermarkets or our kiosks. It's purchased by yourself or myself with the product. And then after that, we dispose it. For most consumers, that usually means that's the end of that. However, for the strategy of circularity is that that bottle is actually collected. It's then taken to a recycling plant where they are sorted according to different colors and etc. And then they are converted into flakes, pellets. And in our case here in Kenya, because we do not have any end use conversion, which means we do not make 100% product here from old bottles, we are exporting our pellets and our flakes to Malaysia or to Europe, where it's used to either make new bottles or it is used to make fiber, your polyester fiber that's widely used even here in our export processing zones. And then the process continues. Our preferred mode as an organization is to be able to make new bottles here in this country. And so that's our aspiration. And we hope that in the coming years, based on what the work we're doing right now with the Kenya Bureau of Standards, we'll be able to have a standard that allows for our manufacturers to have recycled content, recycled resin in their new bottles. This will reduce the amount of virgin material, that is new resin that they are using in their packaging. And so for us, it's to identify how this loop can actually be harnessed and how we can catalyze it so that the beneficiaries in our country are able to plug in wherever they want. Okay, so our membership is made up of the obliged companies. These are really the ones that are putting product into the environment. So you have your brand owners, you have your converters. These are the people who are importing the resin that I talked about. You have your bottling partners, for instance, those who are actually filling the products into the bottles. You have your retailers, as well as associate members. An associate member category is open to the public and to anybody who is willing to participate or who actually believes in our cause. So we've segmented the rates differently across the board for the different types of members. So today our membership, these are some of our members. We control about 60% of the beverage sector here in Kenya. So whereas that is significant, the law that our Ministry of Environment is currently trying to pass, this is the Extended Producer Responsibility Regulations 2020, is going to assist in making it mandatory for every company that is producing packaging of this nature to be a member of a scheme like ours. What that means is that these manufacturers are going to actually begin to bear the real responsibility for what they are putting in the environment. Today, we have a lot of companies, over 800 and plus that are actually not bearing the responsibility for what they are putting into the environment. As I said, these are our members, yet we have over 900 registered water bottling companies that are not part of any scheme anywhere in this country. And that's a shame. We need to be able to bring everyone on board so that everyone bears the responsibility for their action. So our partners, we work with the county governments, national government, NGOs. I saw someone in the audience who's from Shofco. We are working with Shofco in Mathare and Kibera because these are unserviced areas in terms of accessing waste management services. We've been able to work with them to be able to reach those communities, as well as, of course, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Kenya Alliance of Residents Associations, and the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. So how do we collect our bottles? I mentioned that earlier. And that what I said is we contract recycling companies for a specific volume for a specific time period, usually for about a year. We provide a financial subsidy between 5 shillings to 7 shillings per kilogram, which means if a recycler is willing or able, based on their own cash flow, to pay maybe 10 shillings, Petco then tops up that amount by 5 to 7 shillings. And so they are able to now pay a collector 15 to 17 shillings. And as I said earlier, right now, the market is paying between 19 to 21 shillings per kilogram. And this subsidy, the recycler does not retain any shilling. The entire subsidy is passed down to the collector. So I just want to show you a small preview of how bottles are collected. This is one of our recycling plants here in Kenya. Those are baled bottles that have been segregated and separated. They are then collected by a forklift because of the size. They are taken to a sorting line where they are separated according to color. The labels are removed, and then they are then taken into a washing line. Once washed, they are crushed, and then they make pellets. Okay, and these pellets, as you can see, those are made from blue bottles. These are then going to be exported to Asia, where they are being used to make polyester. Okay, and even in some instances, they're even making your hair weaves for the ladies in the audience, or even your braids are made from actual plastic bottles. So next time you see a bottle, remember it's actually being used to make something of value. Yeah. So, sorry. I think I ran through that too. Sorry. Apologies. I've ran too quickly. There. So, as I said, how we are converting our bottles, either from bottle to brush bristles. So today in Kenya, we have a company that makes brushes. It's called TP Brush Manufacturers, and they are our only end-use converter in our country. Yeah, the brush bristles are 100% made from PET bottles. However, we need more capacity. We need to be able to support them to scale up the operation so that they are able to also increase the volumes of bottles that they are taking. But because we have that deficit, a lot of the material is being exported, as I said, either to Asia or to Europe, where it's being used to make fiber, strapping, or even new bottles. Okay, as a company, we've been able to date to recycle over 16,000 metric tons of bottles. So last year, despite COVID, we were able to recycle 8,300 metric tons, which is about 37% of what we generated. And if you look at this against a baseline year, maybe of 2016, 2017, you'll find that in 2017, we were only doing 1,000 metric tons as a country of recycled material. So we've been able as an organization, not on our own, through the value chain that exists, we've only been able to formalize what is happening on the ground and to be, through our subsidy, to be able to increase the rates of recycling. So today I want to talk a little about how do we implement a circular economy approach. And the example we have is of Nyayo Embakasi Estate. Nyayo Embakasi Estate is the second largest estate in sub-Saharan Africa. It houses a population of 25,000 residents with about 4,774 units. In 2020, we received a very small grant from P4G and the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Together with our partners, Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, we were able to actually deploy a segregation at source project in Nyayo Embakasi Estate. Nyayo Embakasi Estate was chosen for the size, the dynamics around the segmentation of the people who live there, and also because they actually were interested and had already formalized an environmental committee within their institution as an organization. Their organization, in the sense of the estates, how they have organized themselves, is very easy to deploy any initiative actually. And so as an organization, when they came to us and we agreed that let's see how we can pilot a segregation at source project, we were readily available to do so. Now, why segregation at source and where does it feature in circular economy? So to achieve a circular economy, it's very important that we access clean and contaminated material that goes into recycling. Today in our estates and in our businesses, a lot of our waste is unsegregated, which means our recyclers, a lot of this waste is ending up at the dump site where people are scavenging for it, which is undignified. That is not a way of living that we should be advocating for. And two, our recyclers are spending a lot of energy and water to clean that material. And in some instances, it's actually too contaminated to be recovered properly. And so segregation at source means we are getting clean material, we are diverting it to recycling directly without going into the dump sites. Okay, and so we handed over 80 mesh bins like the one you see there to the Nyayo Embakasi Residents Association. So all 80 estates, all 80 courts within this housing development have a mesh bin like the one you're seeing there. There it is. And Nyayo Embakasi Estate, because of how organized they are, they had already established an area where they could house this bin. What we did together with them was to provide educational material that sensitizes the people, the residences in the estate on what types of material are actually qualified to be recycled under this scheme. And so we are not only doing plastic bottles as an organization, we are supporting all types of plastics, hard plastics included. And this is just one of the areas where you can see where they house. Very organized estate. So every court has something similar. So it's very easy for anyone to come and take their bottles in there and to be able to separate what needs to be separated. And how we work, this is collected material. We provide these sacks to Nyayo Embakasi Estate. So they gather all the material together. Our contracted collector will go there and weigh and pay for it. And what that payment does, it allows Nyayo Embakasi Estate to pay one of their employees to manage this project in a dedicated fashion, which allows that person to be able to earn a living from doing this work. Yeah. So if you look at the volumes, these are the volumes of Nyayo Embakasi Estate to date, from when we started in June 2020 to date. And you can see that the volumes have been going up. There are periods when there has been a dip, maybe when there's been a lockdown in our country and consumption patterns, of course, have reduced. But what we have learned from this pilot project is that it can be scaled. There's a lot of room now for us to go back in and sensitize them, not only on plastics, but on other materials, glass, aluminium, Tetra Pak, which can also be recycled readily in our country. And that being the case, then we are able to onboard other partners who are able to support them. So what are the opportunities for residential associations and how can you get started? Establish an environmental committee within your own community. Identify your needs for bins and a management system for those bins. As I said, as PETCO, we will link you with our recyclers and our collectors. And where we can, we will provide support, be it of sacks or other materials, depending on the size and population that you're servicing. And once you do that, then we are able to link you directly to our recycler, where you get a preferred rate for your bottles and other recyclable materials. So we hope with that you'll be able to join us. You can reach us. Our contacts will be shared with Kara, and we can be able to assist as you require. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce, for that very informative Maybe I should just mention that a couple of weeks ago, CARA and PETCO Kenya signed an MOU to collaborate on this very useful initiative. So you already see how it can work in a residential area. And as CARA, we want as many of as possible to be part of this journey so that we can make our contribution. I think the takeaway is that we all must take responsibility for the environment and for our action, not just as individuals, but also as corporate, as companies. If we generate waste or do something in the environment, we must be able to know how we are going to make sure it doesn't have adverse effect on the environment. So with those remarks, maybe now just to invite our next presenter, and we are going to hear from Thomas Jensen, who, as I mentioned earlier, is the Sector Councillor, Environment and Circular Economy at the Royal Danish Embassy in Kenya. And I'm sure he's going to share with us how they've done it in their country, and maybe just some kind of lessons that Kenya can be able to get from what they've done and improve our process. So Thomas, if you can hear me, please take the floor and make a presentation. If you can keep within 10 minutes, I think that would be excellent. Thomas?
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much. It's well received. I hope you can hear me. And I will start by saying that I'm first of all very honored to be invited to this forum, and I want to thank Joyce for a very good presentation. Because of the very distinguished audience, I have also my colleague who's a waste expert from Denmark, Kasper Mejland, with me, and he will do the presentation together with me. So I hope you hear me. Chair, can you confirm? I think he does. Okay, Kasper, please, can you put on the presentation? Super. Because we've invited to speak here today because Denmark works a lot with Kenya on a partnership towards realizing Kenya's ambitions within circular economy. And Denmark has worked on this for a long time. And what we will try to speak about today is how we got there. Because we can all set big targets. We have all set big targets and have lots of ambitions, but how do we realize them? And as an introduction, I will say that circular economy is about circular incentives. It's not to say that we should all be angels. It's all about, of course, making a good business. However, there are also waste streams where it takes our better angels. It takes that we're good citizens, that we don't dump our waste on somebody else. So it is both about the incentives, the pure business. It is also about being good citizens. So let me start by one point. I live in Nairobi. And when I arrived in Kenya some 6 years ago, I found out that I needed some wood for building wood, and it was not so expensive. Now, last week I needed some building wood again, materials, timber. It was really expensive. The price has gone up by 60%. And my point is that there is a general, if you look at the worldwide, there's a general increase in material prices. And this is good news if we want to turn towards circular economy. Kasper, next slide, please. If you look at, this is the 100 years of global commodity prices. So you look from 1900 and down towards 2000, sorry. There's a steady decline. Of course, it went a bit up during the world wars, and this is the global prices. But since 2000, that means like since Kibaki, it's not Kibaki's fault, but since Kibaki took power here in Kenya, we've seen a steady incline in material prices, quite a lot. Actually, and now the last year has been quite an outlier because of the corona pandemic and other things. But materials like steel, like timber, and I'm sure many of you have seen, the prices have gone up. Prices have gone up, both because there is an increased demand with almost 9 million people on the planet, and because a lot of industries like China all of a sudden had a boom in building and needed the materials for steel and other things. This makes us think, okay, instead of just getting new steel, new timber, could we build in a more sustainable fashion? I don't think we even needed any better angels of our nature to start doing this, because when things get scarce, we start being more innovative about it. However, so this is the first, the good news for circular economy. Prices are going up, so we'll see the market reacting to this automatically. I think when we speak to companies here in Kenya, many say, in a few years, water will be much more expensive. However, there is some there are some fractions. Say the thin wrapped plastic around our food that we buy. That was mentioned in the beginning by Daniel Seiberling. Sorry, that wrapping is very difficult to reuse, and it will end up getting burned. For those fractions, we have to not use our economic sense, because it might not be worth economically, but we have to use our citizenry sense and say, we should not just dump that on somebody else. We shouldn't just burn it so that some people get sick or the environment gets bad. We shouldn't just turn it to Dandora or another landfill. We should make sure that our waste is collected responsibly and sorted in a good way. And here we need government legislation, because we are not angels, all of us. We need good legislation. And I think what I'll turn to now, the next slide, is if you look at the Danish story of how we went hundreds of years of waste management, we had some of regulation and we had good governance. We didn't have anybody, we didn't have the Brits coming and sorry to say, colonizing us, to be frank. So we had a long history of self-management. So we had a very different trajectory. But where it really took off, look in the middle, that is during the Second World War, because there was scarcity. Scarcity meant that we had to organize ourselves in a different way. And I think this scarcity that we see today in some materials, the prices going up, is an opportunity for Kenya. So basically, what my point is here, you will need both the market and the scarcity to get this going, and you will need good regulation, and both things are present right now. I think I was in the meeting yesterday with P.S. Kipto, who will speak later, and Kenya is very ambitious on the EPR regulation, and if Kenya can roll it out successfully, it will have a huge impact. Last point I should make here, PETCO, as you see, they do this on a voluntary basis. That is the better angels of our nature. They go beyond the Kenyan current legislation because they want to make sure that they are good citizens. Of course, PETCO, as we also saw, has a lot of international brands, and I'm sure that the big companies like Coca-Cola, they are very worried about their brands, so they also go over and beyond the Kenyan legislation. This is good. This is very good, but we have to make sure that everybody, not those with an international brand, will get in compliance. That's why we need the Kenyan law to also catch up and do what PETCO is actually doing within the plastic field. But this was about the global thing, the global markets, that we need incentives, and we need to be good citizens. Kasper, maybe you will continue speaking about the Danish mechanism and what made it work so well in Denmark. Over.
Yep. Thank you very much, Thomas, for that introduction. Thank you, Kara, for inviting us to give our talk on at least how we have how we have tried at least to make the Danish waste management system to become more circular. I'm not saying we are there yet. I don't know if it's ever possible to become 100% circular, but I think also we have moved somewhat from being linear to at least becoming more circular. And I think that's what I will briefly try to talk a little bit about now. Yeah. So as you might know, and as is possible also in Kenya, at least most places in the world, there's a polluter pays principle, meaning that if you are the person, the company, the polluter, then actually you will have to pay somehow. Either you pay by a fine if you throw garbage on the street, if you create some waste that you have to go to a dump site to, you will have to pay, and so on. At least in Denmark, we are quite big on this principle, which means that the more you pollute, the more you have to pay. This means if you have waste that has to go to a landfill, and in our terms, at least a landfill is not very circular in any ways, then you have to pay quite a big tax. If though you have some waste that you have to send for energy recovery, which is incineration in Denmark, well, then you pay a little bit less, but you still have to pay because it's not very circular to burn your waste. However, then, if you have some waste and you can send it for recycling, there's no tax on it. Recycling is, I'm not saying it's free, because of course it costs money to sort your waste and so on, but still, you don't have to pay an additional tax on it. And even if you actually have to, if you can find a way to reuse your waste, then you actually can get a tax reduction. So that way, that's a way to actually promote recycling. Also, we have the principle that we call the waste hierarchy. That means whoever has the responsibility of any kind of waste, usually it would be like a municipality. If we talk about household waste, first they have to see, can we somehow prevent that this is actually waste? If they cannot do that, then they have to look, okay, can we somehow reuse this so it's not actually waste, but it can be reused as a new product? If that's not possible, then you have to look for recycling options. How can I recycle this? And if you can't figure out how to recycle the waste that you have, well, then you have to move into, like, how do you say, more severe and not very circular options, where the next issue would be energy recovery, and at the very last, using the waste as landfill. So that means at least we are as much as possible trying to avoid landfills in Denmark, as they're not really seen as being circular at all. Similar to Kenya, the Danish government and other strategic institutions are developing policies and strategies on how to actually make this transition towards a circular economy. And I think this is the right way to do it, because we need to see the path somehow. Someone have to direct us about how to do it. And currently, right now in Denmark, I think we have two areas that we're really focusing on. And one is we have this vision for a green waste sector, meaning that well, it should be climate neutral. 80% of the plastic we're sending for energy recovery, that is again incineration, should be removed by 2030. And also we want to reduce the amount of waste that we're producing, and especially breaking the amount of waste that we're sending for incineration. So that's one area that at least in Denmark that me and all my colleagues we're very aware of and that we're working for. Another area is actually the national targets. And this is where it becomes interesting, because Henry was quite nice, saying that we have moved from a linear to a circular economy. But our target is still that by 2025, we should recycle 50% of what we call municipal solid waste. So that means household waste in general, but also waste from small businesses and so on. So I don't know if we're circular yet, but we're at least trying to become there. And even more so if we're looking in 2035. There we have at least the goal that we should recycle 60% of our waste. And I think another important aspect here is that when we're talking about recycling, we're not talking about collecting the items for recycling. We're talking about, how do you say, in the recycling process, when we can actually substitute a raw material by recycled materials. So we are really trying to push it to become more circular. Another interesting point here is that we can also measure how far we are with our efforts. And I think that is really what makes the big difference for Denmark. So if we're looking at how far we've done so far, then we can actually see that here in 2019, we have more or less been able to recycle about 50% of our municipal solid waste, which we're quite happy about, of course, but we still think that we can actually go further. But it's quite important that one thing is to set a target, the other thing actually to be able to measure. Can you actually see that you have reached this target? And I think that's a key, at least, where we in Denmark somehow have a strategic point, because we have this national electronic waste database. And via this waste database, we're more or less measuring and counting and can supervise all the waste streams in Denmark. That means whenever waste changes hands, as I have written here, but also when someone, when the responsibility for who's treating some waste is being changed, then you have to report to our waste data system. That means actually that we can control from more or less from when someone is collecting paper from my household until it reaches a sorting plant, until it reaches the paper mill. Maybe you can't really trace the newspaper I threw out yesterday, but you can still trace that on this street, on this municipality, you collected X amount of waste that was sent to this sorting plant, and this sorting plant sent this waste to this paper mill or whoever would receive it. And this is actually a way that we can actually try to look into our waste streams and see if we actually are reaching these targets. Because I think it's fairly easy somehow to set a target on, hey, yes, we want to recycle 70% of all the waste that we have. But if you can't really measure how much waste you have, or what's happening to the waste, then I think that the target is not really working. And I think at least that's where we somehow are quite eager on actually having really good waste data. It also makes us able to somehow to see, okay, where can we easily become more circular? Where are the biggest waste streams that ends up on a landfill, ends up in incineration or for energy recovery? And we can also see where do we have the polluting sectors, who are creating the most waste? And that way, it's fairly easy to make targeted policies, and policies that are actually like trying to really target where we can see, okay, here we have some how do you say, low-hanging fruits that are easy to do something with. And that's actually what we have done. So in order to reach the targets that I talked about before, and I think that the two main targets here are reaching the, well, let's say the 50, 55, 60% of recyclability of all municipal waste. That's one of the goals, and the other one is to avoid burning plastic at all cost. Then what we have done in Denmark, at least now, we have just initiated this plan where every household have to sort their waste in 10 different fractions that are all being, well, they can be commingled, but they are all being collected at the household and then on sending for sorting and so on. Of course, one of these waste streams will be waste for incineration, but the other 9 waste streams are meant for recycling at least. The same thing is actually being done by the private sector. Of course, not all private sectors have the same waste that I have in my household, but if you have an office, well, then you have paper. Then you have to sort the paper, and the paper should be collected by the garbage truck and sent for sorting and so on. At the same time, we're talking about these private-public agreements where we look at a sector. For example, the agricultural sector. They're producing quite a bit of plastic, agricultural plastic. And right now, we've seen a public-private agreement that by, I think it's 2030, they will send at least 80% of the plastic wrapping and so on from the agricultural sector for recycling. And I think right now they're probably sending about 10%. So this is a big step. And this is done without actually regulations and law enforcement and so on, because this is a voluntary agreement made between the sector and, how do you say, the authorities, because the sector can also see, okay, well, if we have to sustain and if we want to see an Earth in, let's say, in 100 years, well, then we have to also make an effort. And I think that's quite important. At the very last, we have these other main initiatives where we're now looking into reducing the capacity of reincineration. So that means that even though we've been really good at burning our waste and creating energy out of waste, we can also see, okay, we have to put a limit. We should not burn any more waste. We should actually send it to recycling. But in order to be able to recycle, then you also have to how do you say, improve the recycling industry. You need to build up a capacity. So right now we're looking into, for example, build up big plastic plants in Denmark, so that we can actually start to thinking about recycling ourselves. Just as Joyce said, we also have to send our sorted plastic out into Europe for the final recycling of our plastic. But we can see that maybe we can actually increase the recyclability of plastic if we're doing it ourselves. And the very least, as we also see here in Kenya, we're also looking into putting extended producer responsibility on more products, actually meaning that the products or the producers of these products, they actually have to be part of this. The producer almost pays here for collecting the waste and actually for having it recycled. We also see that this will do something. At the very end, I have just identified 3 different questions that maybe we can wait for in the Q&A, but I think they are quite important to be addressed if you actually want to make the transition from a leaner to a more circular economy. And I think one is like, okay, what is the biggest obstacle? And there's numerous obstacles, but what is the biggest one? How do we eliminate like maybe the 1, 2, 3 biggest obstacles? I think that's important. Also, how do we change the public view? Something we have to look at this that we've always been looking at as waste, as something dirty. And now we have to understand it as a resource. I mean, we have to treat our kids, our grandmothers, ourselves, not to treat this anymore as waste, but as resources. And at the very last thing is that it costs money. I mean, even though we're talking about a circular economy, I mean, recycling is not always free. I believe that PET, that you have a good business model, but there's other types of plastic that you cannot recycle that easily, and that cost a lot of money to actually recycle. So we also have to look into, okay, how much do we actually want to pay before we can actually increase or do the transition to circular economy. I think that was all that I had to say for now, at least. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And I'll give the word back to you, Chair, to you, Henry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasper and Jensen, for sharing with us the views. I think there's quite a number of lessons to learn. From 100 years of waste management, I'm sure you have something to learn from you. So far, I can see there's quite a bit that you're able to pick from that. I like the last question. I think that will inform our engagement beyond this forum. We would work out something around that. So let's go to the next presenter. And we are having Dr. Anne Omambia, Chief Compliance Officer, and also Climate Change Coordinator at the National Environment Management Authority. These are the regulators, and Anne is going to share with us her perspective from where she sits as a regulator. So Anne, can you please take the floor and speak?
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Nyaticho Mambia, representing the Director General, the National Environment Management Authority. I want to appreciate you for allowing me to speak on this very subject. And I would request that you allow me to kindly share my screen.
You can share.
I hope it is visible to us all, and I'll try to be as brief as possible with regards to the topic that was assigned to us. We want to appreciate Kara, just for introductory purposes, for the commendable work you're doing in awareness creation, knowledge sharing, with regards to various aspects that pertain to our areas of residence. And every Kenyan resides somewhere, whether it's in a rural setup, or whether it's in the cities, whether it's a informal settlement or formal, we all retreat somewhere at the end of the day, and we are all generators of waste. So as a brief on NEMA, we are a state agency that is created by an act of parliament, the Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1999, with a very broad mandate to exercise general supervision and coordination on matters related to the environment, and to also advise government on matters of environmental policy. So we have a mission which is anchored on the Constitution to ensure a clean and healthy environment to all. So as a background, environmental pollution in Kenya is a state, county, and citizenry mandate. We all contribute to either a clean and healthy environment or the very opposite of it. And therefore, the mandate to manage our environment lies with all of us. And again, that is in the Constitution as a Bill of Rights. You have a right to a clean and healthy environment, but the rider is that we all have a responsibility to keep it so. So policy, regulatory, institutional frameworks are actually in existence. We have county and government and national government policies, which I'll talk about later. But the crux of the matter where the challenge of waste management comes into place is that the population is increasing. And as the population increases, the challenges, also our income index is increasing. We are able to purchase more, and the more we purchase, we have, with every purchase comes something to be disposed. If you look at it in terms of whether it is organic, if you eat your banana, there's a peel to be disposed. How do you dispose it? Whether it's an electronic gadget or any other means of life's comfort that we have, they change our consumer patterns, and therefore it increases with it the challenge of waste management. We then have inadequate pollution management measures. and the infrastructure. With waste comes the issue of infrastructure, whether it is effluent waste, that is liquid waste, whether it is air pollution coming from our stack emissions or our mobile sources, or whether it's solid waste in its totality, in all its forms, whether it is organic waste, hazardous waste, recyclable waste. The infrastructure that goes with it from production to safe disposal or reuse is a challenge and does not match the amounts of generated waste and the service provisions in the various places. So a linear approach is what we have been used to, where we produce. Once I buy my item, the next thing I do is dispose it. And we see this on a daily basis. You'd see a very posh car driving in front of you. Probably you're in a public means, or you're a pedestrian, or in your own personal car. And the next thing you do, even as you walk, is you narrowly escape being hit by a water bottle, which is PET and recyclable, as one of the speakers here has ably advised us. Or it could be something that can go towards making compost, or should actually be disposed in a safe manner. For example, in this case, in the COVID season, our masks. How do we dispose them? Do you just release it? That is a hazardous material because it has the possibility of having contamination with the virus, and therefore is a pathogenic waste, should be disposed in a better manner because it's contaminated. So the legal and institutional structure regime I was talking about is that we are not short of the law in terms of what we should do for waste. Principally is the Constitution, the Article 6 of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, or rather the Bill of Rights in the Constitution. Then we also have the right in Section 42, which spells out about the environment, and 69 and 70 articles of the Constitution, and they all talk about what we should do for sustainable development of the country. Within the authority, we also have the Environmental Management and Coordination Act I referred to, the Waste Management Regulations, which give measures and also how we should manage our solid waste. Then we have the water quality regulations on effluents, that is both the sewer and the non-sewered sectors. Then we also have the air quality regulations, the Public Health Act, and of course all the counties, because waste is a devolved function. The counties have county legislations and regulations. As an authority, we have also gone ahead and made various guidelines on how to handle various waste streams, such as we have waste oil regulations, asbestos regulations, guidelines rather, and other guidelines, waste tires, because in our neighborhoods, those that are blessed with motor vehicles, when you change your tire, most probably you will leave it either with the handler who changed your tire, or if you do it on your own, some of them you sell them, others you openly ban them. Is that the recommended approach? No. And can that be used to a better use? Of course. It can be managed through a circularity approach. And the institutions present in handling waste are many. We have the authority, which is the regulator. We also have the county governments. The citizens themselves have a role and a part of the institutions in the framework for waste management. The residents associations, such as the one we have, Kara, the business community. I will give a case of the Rubicon, the Ruaraka business community, which has an initiative with the Danish government, and NEMA and others in a circularity approach, and of course the industry players. So we have a national waste management regulation, and this is what it projects to be its goal towards a zero waste principle. That is, as much as possible, recover over 80% of the waste along the value chain and dispose only that which cannot be of economic or useful value to be able to recycle, because with recycling comes technology, and there are certain parts that are not completely recyclable. So we do have within the National Solid Waste Management Strategy short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals, all towards achievement of the Vision 2030. So what is a circular economy? Because we've spoken for close to an hour on circularity and what is it. The books define it as a system of resource management which ensures continuous use of materials, goods, energy, and waste by retaining their highest value throughout the value chain, that is throughout the life cycle. So it brings about the concept of rethinking and redesigning from the start. I want to make, for example, within the construction sector, I want to build a house. What are the materials that I need? Are they the best suited for my environmental climatic situation? Have I done a green procurement? By green procurement, we mean that you've been able to think through your materials to the very end before you start procurement. But I know in Kenya, we would say, once you get your plot, as we are famously known for, the best advice you're given, anza kumwaga mawe. You know, start putting down your materials, mwaga mchanga, mwaga misumari and everything else. And then once you finish your construction site, you realize that you have a lot of materials that you really didn't require. And they end up becoming waste on your site, but actually useful and can be circulated back. So how do you save that money? How do you save those goods to preserve them? Through thinking through your whole concept to the very end before you procure, and then procure fit for purpose. Therefore, a circular economy is basically an economic system. It's closed loops with your raw materials and your products, and you try to retain the value chain as much as possible. You don't want to buy your wood and then at the end of your construction period in 2 to 3 years, depending on the complexity and scale of the project, that you have all this timber that is rotting away without having thought through. And the same applies in your household. When you procure your foodstuffs, because food waste is one of the largest sources of waste within the hotel sector, within the household sector. We've grown up knowing that our mothers will always say, whatever is on your plate, make sure you finish it. They were very circularity approach oriented, even though we never thought it so, because they didn't want wastage. They were trying to ensure, and then whatever remained, if it was not, whatever was handled was not served from the plate, then they would convert it to other ways. You'd see that they will recondition the meal and serve it afresh, store it better. Those are the all concepts. And then for recyclables, such as plastics, we buy a lot of products packaged in plastic packaging, and this has been mentioned here. Are there plastic packaging containers that you can reuse within your household or within your business sector, within your industry, without necessarily having to dispose it? Reusing it in the form in which it came from the shop. That's what we mean by reuse. For recycling, it entails a mechanical or chemical reorientation through an industrial process to make it into another product. For example, like what Joyce said, that they can make new bottles, they can make new product basins that are, because within our country, our recycling capability, we have not upscaled it as much to reach food grade recycling. For example, certain recyclables, then you can be able to use it for a non-food material. So it is therefore one which requires investment. You need to be able to claim that you're doing full circular economy. There's the whole use of renewable energy and these resources, our new design and thinking from early stage, such that the end product, you know that if I have any form of waste at the end of this line, then I know where I will take it. There's a next industry that is waiting for it to take it up, or I'm going to convert it to a usable material to avoid as much as possible a linear production sense. So the circularity loop is in such a manner that when you think to design something, you have to rethink in terms of what's the end product, the end stage of this product, regenerate it, recover as much as possible, and of course the whole waste concepts of reduction and reuse. So it entails a whole system shift in our mindset to waste management. And this slide I have taken from one of the presentations shared one of the forums. Then I want to share an example which was done by the construction sector through the National Construction Authority. Early in the year, they had a construction research forum. And one of the presentations done was on management of construction and demolition waste. And I think I've shared that example already with how the construction sector, almost everything is reusable. The challenge is how it is handled, how it is procured, stored, and when it is being disposed, how it is sorted. So you have this huge construction site. Is it possible for the contractor or the site manager to have various types of skips or receptacles which contain, when the construction workers come, they know that if there's a chipping of wood, I'll put it in this receptacle. If there's a chipping of scrap metal, I'll put it in this receptacle, such that there's a linkage either to then have another industry pick it up and use it again to make other products. And I've seen this initiative with some of the youths during this COVID season who are collecting waste wood and waste paper to make very nice products that they were selling online. These are very good money-making initiatives. So the NCA, the National Construction Authority, conducted a research on the amounts of waste generated from the construction sector and shared case studies of countries how others, like Japan, have gone to up to almost 95% recovery and circulating it back into the construction sector of construction waste material. And it all starts from the inception, the procurement, the sorting, and the site management. We are all aware that probably either you or a vehicle you are boarding in pass through a construction site road, especially in the satellite urban towns of Nairobi or elsewhere, the Kitengelas and others where construction is continuous, and either a nail or some scrap metal or something stalled your vehicle. Can that be managed better? So I'll share some few circular economy initiatives which NEMA is involved on. One of them is the Rubicom, that is the Ruaraka Business Community Industrial Symbiosis Initiative, where one company's waste residue becomes another proximate company's resource. By proximate, we mean it's within the same community and therefore transportation costs are same. So for example, if a company is making products in plastics that are for food grade material and they have to use them, they have waste, then it is picked by another company to probably make tanks or basins and others. And that has been very successful within the Rubicom sector. Then we also have the initiative of Greening Kenya's Industrial Sector Initiative, where the industry is involved in continuous improvement in waste management, energy management, water recycling, where water which is not contaminated can be used for greening, for cleaning the industries and other measures, including mingling of, or rather use of a mixture of virgin material, like especially for the plastics, mixing it with recyclables. I think this Joyce did mention to it. Also, NEMA is in partnership, has been for quite a while, with the Kenya National Cleaner Production Center, where we continuously train on-site industry on cleaner production measures to ensure that as much as possible they green the industrial practices. And we are also heavily involved in awareness creation and training and education with collaborations with tertiary institutions from primary to university level, where for the universities, we have a green network with them and regional centers of collaboration with the Open University and other UN agencies. And also, because we are a regulator, we also do compliance and enforcement as part of our mandate. So, in conclusion, I was asked to talk about the benefits, the opportunities, and challenges. The first thing, when waste is well managed, the obvious one is the aesthetics. A clean environment. It's appealing when you enter a clean place. I think it has been rated that some of the countries that are most peaceful, the environment is clean. And the ecosystem services provided by a clean environment are often not valued. And unless we attach economic value to them, we often assume that once my house is clean and I dump my waste in my neighbor's compound, then it is all well. But the moment you step out, probably your very waste could be your own occupational or environmental hazard. And therefore, the aesthetic benefits cannot be underrated. The health benefits, we are aware that the leading cause of the current diseases, both human, animal, and even the ones that are bioaccumulating within the ecosystems can be attributed to environmental pollution, and therefore the health benefits are obvious, whether it is there's no air pollution, there's no water pollution. Kenya has a very high statistics with regards to waterborne diseases, and this can be avoided when effluent wastewater is well treated or solid waste is well disposed, especially when it comes from contaminated industrial sites. And even if it is, so there's contamination from pathogenic waste, from industrial chemicals, and that can be avoided with having a good circularity system. Then the financial benefits that come with installation and management of waste, not only for the waste recycler, but even for you, when there's an efficient waste management system, you pay less in your overall health benefits. If you look at it, the amount of money that goes to comorbidity diseases that come about from poor waste management, whether it is financial benefits that come from selling, for example, the composting. This particular COVID season, many of us were able to go back to the farms. You would be able to know that those who have tried organic farming, purchasing of organic fertilizer is not cheap, and therefore it has financial benefits. Then the socioeconomic, for those that are big in circularity, they are able to eco-brand, and the world is big on eco-branding. When you brand your goods that they are sustainably managed is a good step. Then the tech transfer. With waste management comes the technology transfer, and there have been incentives. The National Treasury 2 years back gave incentives to industry to import plastic recycling materials and equipment at with an economic incentive. They were able to be given a tax rebate, not a tax rebate, but a tax reduction to be able to bring that technology transfer. And as technology comes, also comes the innovation, because once you are able to import, Kenyans are very innovative, you'll see that they'll be able to come up with similar technologies to be able to manage waste. Then there's a big opportunity for research and development with this concept of circular economy, then job creation, and of course the incubation, because with the Rubicon, that is the Ruaraka Business Community Industrial Symbiosis Access, it acts like an incubation center where you can be able to upscale and replicate that model of circular industrial symbiosis in other areas beyond Ruaraka. There are various opportunities, partnership with other players, entrepreneurial, I think I've mentioned that, the use of digital technology. I am a climate change scientist, and waste data is one of the largest gaps that we have in conducting greenhouse gas inventories for the country. We have to use a lot of population studies to be able to estimate, and nutrition studies to be able to estimate emissions from waste. But we can use digital platforms linked to resident associations to be able to know what are the amounts of waste, organic waste generated from this neighborhood, how do you upscale it to another neighborhood, and then we shall be able to better have national data for greenhouse gas accounting. And then we also have lots of opportunities in access to finance to leverage investment in circular economy. I know that Kenya has submitted a nationally appropriate mitigation action proposal to be able to be funded in circular waste management. The challenges are many, as I mentioned, that doing waste management, the infrastructure investment for waste management, whether it is a sanitary landfill for a county government, whether it is purchasing of skips for residential neighborhood. By skips, I mean the waste receptacles, the temporal waste receptacles, having appropriate transportation trucks for waste, not the open truck that spills the waste as we commonly see it. If you're driving behind it, you always pray that it doesn't spill onto you, and the anesthetic nature by which it is transported. For the sewer systems, most of our urban areas are not sewer reticulated, and a lot of investment is required in that. And then for the recycling, for circular economy to work, the commingling of waste is the greatest impediment. I think Joyce alluded to this, where waste comes, it is mixed, you have your plastics. Even if you try at household level to sort your waste, when the waste truck comes, it mixes up everything. And therefore the end use recycler has a challenge of going through waste that is mixed with hospital waste, which is a biohazard, industrial waste, which is probably from a chemical industry, which is another hazard, and it's mixed with food waste from a hotel, and those are the challenges. And then finally, the challenge of a general perception and attitude and behavior to waste. Even the very educated often can have a very poor behavior towards waste management. And this, as a citizenry, we have a role all to play to be able to know that my waste, my responsibility, I should therefore take care of it and ensure that it's disposed in a safe and healthy environment. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Dr. for that presentation, quite informative. And of course, we all must take responsibility about it. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize in advance because we are clearly going to overshoot our time by some minutes. So please, I request that indulge us and just allow us a few more minutes so that we can listen to PS and then take a few questions. So after the PS presentation, we will have a brief plenary session. So if you have a question that you want to ask any of the panelists after the PS presentation, please raise your hand. So I'll be able to pick a few of you to ask questions, but I can also see a lot of interaction going on in the chat box. So you can also make use of that and make sure that you can get your response from the panel at the chat box. We're also running a poll, so running for 5 minutes each of them. So if you can take time to maybe just ask some of the questions that are posted there, that will be very good for us. So without taking much time, I would like now want to invite PS Dr. Christy. As you had, one of the advice you are given from Denmark that you must be able to have sound regulations and policies in place to be able to support the whole idea of circular economy. And the custodian of policy and regulations in regard to this particular subject we're discussing is the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And we are glad that the PS has been able to join us today. And I want to invite Dr. Chris Kipto to speak to us and tell us what the government is doing and what we should be able to expect in terms of moving forward the discussion on circular economy. But PS, if you can hear me, please take the floor and speak to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry Ochieng. Let me first apologize for coming late. I think I missed out on the presentation by Robertson, seeing the program. But I managed to listen to Joyce Gashugi Waweru, a very good presentation. Actually, I was very surprised to learn that there is good progress in Embakasi. I would be very keen to know more about that because it's very encouraging. And I also listened to Thomas and Anna and also I think someone else, I think I forgot the name, but I think it was Casper.
Casper, yes.
And yes, very good presentation. So I think you covered a lot of what I was going to say, but because you have invited me, I will still proceed to repeat. Maybe it will help to make many others understand this subject matter, because I've seen you are running a poll and asking how many people understand this issue of circular economy. So I want to take this opportunity, Henry, to thank Kara for giving me this opportunity to address you on this very important subject matter of circular economy approach and to waste management, focusing on the benefits, opportunities, and of course, challenges. There's no doubt that this discussion comes at a time when we are facing a lot of disruption all over the world because of COVID, which has affected social, economic, and environmental tenets of our development. This COVID crisis has brought into fore discussions regarding the issue of unsustainable consumption and production, and also the issue of waste disposal as a threat to human prosperity. I want at this stage to say that based on the statistics that I have seen my team give, they have told me that Kenya's waste management approach has been linear, and I've seen that repeated a lot, and that we have seen all our waste mixed. All of it is mixed, and then destined for dump sites, the famous Dandoras. And that when you analyze this waste, mixed waste, 60% of it is organic, about 30% can be recycled, while 10% is what goes on to the landfills. The linear model, coupled with increasing population and low public awareness, as well as negative consumer perception on waste, has resulted in massive environmental pollution through waste. And I think the presentation by NEMA has also brought that quite clearly. So I would like to say at this point that circular economy provides us, as many have said, the opportunity to reverse this trend through reduction, reuse, and recycling. And I've seen many other R's. Because doing this provides us for enables us to get enhanced value extraction from resources, and can turn economies around by ensuring optimal use of our resources with minimal demand for virgin raw materials, and therefore reduce pollution. And we see this recognizing under the Paris Agreement, under the climate change aspirations towards a below 1.5 degree temperature moderation. I wish at this stage to say that Kenya has already domesticated these aspirations in the just concluded national determined contribution recently submitted to UNFCCC. For some of you who have read that report, you've seen that we have indicated for the next 10 years, we are really going to require a lot of resources to deal with mitigation and adaptation of climate change. A total of about $62 billion will be required over the next 10 years, or an average of $6.2 billion per year will be required. Of that, mitigation alone will take about $18 billion, or $1.8 billion per year, while adaptation costs will take about $44 billion, or $4.4 billion. When you look at the mitigation sectors where we are going to rely on, we will be looking at energy sector, transport sector, land use and forestry, and agriculture, of course, industry, manufacturing, and finally waste as a sector that we shall be looking at. So let me say that the circular economy concept has been integrated in several policy and legislative initiatives in our country, Kenya. And they include the following. One, the ban on single-use plastics bags nationally. And this was done in February 2017. The ban has promoted the use of alternative bags that are less harmful to the environment after end of life. Two, the ban on use of single-use plastics in protected areas in June 2019, which with enhanced pollution control. Sorry, I need to get some water. The ban on the use of single-use plastics in protected areas in June 2019, which enhanced the pollution control within our protected areas. This ban is in force, and our protected areas are now cleaner. Let me get some water. Let me get some water. Sorry, I've been talking most of the day. So the third point I want to make is that we have now a sustainable waste management policy and bill for 2020, which was approved by Cabinet in February this year. And this policy proposes a transition from linear to circular economy. The policy and the bill also includes provisions for the development of extended producer responsibility schemes, enabling a circular economy and environmentally sustainable use through extended producer responsibility, life cycle assessment, reuse, and recycling of waste in Kenya is a very fundamental shift. The draft EPR regulations of this year, 2021, calls upon the producers to ensure their products and packaging are reusable and recyclable, as well as embrace ecological life cycle. The fifth issue is that the ministry has finalized the development of 2 sets of curricula to promote circular economy for environmental journalists and a training of trainers curriculum for waste service providers. And the ministry is now in the process of rolling out the curriculum. Actually, we will be doing so next week on Monday, and we will be extending invitation to some of you. Also to be rolled out next week is an advocacy, public awareness and communication strategy, which the ministry has developed on circular economy. The program will make use of diverse media platforms and strategies to reach out to public on circular economy. And then finally, the ministry is in the process of developing a framework to accelerate transition of business to green growth and circular economy in Kenya. This initiative was motivated by the realization that some businesses in Kenya have made efforts to be environmentally friendly, have adapted circular models and resource efficiency initiatives such as energy and water audits, but the progress is still at small scale and is not sufficient. The framework is designed to help private sector to go green and embrace circular economy framework through the involvement of businesses, enterprises, and citizens to reach the targets of zero waste, zero emissions, and enhanced material recycling practices. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to add that circular economy advocates for a rethink of the resources in our disposal to derive optimal benefits and avoid wastage. There is a realization that there are many players within the value chain, each benefiting from a fraction of the resource. So, circular economy benefits go beyond employment, they go beyond money, they go beyond livelihoods, they go beyond attitudes and social transformation. Let me at this stage deal a bit on the sustainable waste management policy and bill, which proposes establishment and strengthening of the following value chains, each with a capacity to employ many Kenyans. Number one, waste segregation at source into various fractions. Households can sell these fractions and earn income. Number two, material transfer facilities, so-called MRFs. The MRFs receive segregated waste for further segregation. These MRFs will be managed by local community and will be expected to sell the waste and hence earn income. Number three, reuse facilities. This is where used items will undergo refurbishment and sold for reuse. Number four, waste transportation. Since waste will be segregated, more vehicles will be engaged for different waste fractions, implying more jobs. Number five, composting facilities. These facilities will receive the organic waste and make organic fertilizer to be sold to farmers. Number six, recycling facilities will be expanded to recover every waste stream and supported through extended producer responsibility schemes. They are expected to employ many people. And finally, sanitary landfill that will be responsible for self-disposal of at least 5% of waste that cannot be recycled or reused. So, ladies and gentlemen, circular economy diversifies the value chains, leading to more benefits to the communities and to the people. Let me at this point highlight some of the challenges that we shall continue to face as we transition to the circular economy. The first challenge is that most of these initiatives and policies have been primarily driven by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Yet circular economy is a broader, horizontal and cross-cutting concept applicable in many aspects of the economy and society. Number two is that inadequate public awareness and linear attitude among key players in sustainable development initiatives. And number three is inadequate infrastructure to support circular economy operationalization. Number four, very few existing policies support transition to circular economy. And lastly, inadequate technological and financial resources to support circular economy. So I wish to conclude by saying that circularity and sustainable consumption and production are essential to assist Kenya to deliver on its commitments in multilateral agreements. They will help us use our resources optimally while reducing our waste and environmental pollution footprint. A new national circular economy policy and an action plan will incentivize innovative designs for circularity and extended product life and establish infrastructure for entire natural resource management, including waste management and recycling. We have already developed some policy and legislative enablers and are committed to reflect and upscale policy and legislative interventions on our transition to circular economy. That's all I have to say. And I think yesterday we had a great discussion with the Thomas and other team members on what we are doing on the EPR schemes. We are making good progress. There are still a few sticky issues which we hope to sort out, but we hope very soon that we shall have all the 18 waste streams to at least conform to the EPR schemes that we are going to be, the minister will gazette very soon. I don't want to add more. Maybe I will listen and indicate that next week we will have another conversation like this, and we intend to even have more discussions, especially with our communication team, so that we bring out this discussion, make many Kenyans understand, and hope that we can make progress so that we reduce our waste and we derive maximum value. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Banapias. I think I can say that we are on the right track as a country in terms of putting the right frameworks in place to facilitate transition to circular economy. Piers has told us many things which I don't want to repeat, and of course, clearly there's still need for more awareness creation and making sure that everybody understands what this is about, and also understand their roles and responsibilities. So as I mentioned, if you have any question that you want to pose to any of the panelists, you can raise your hand, then we'll be able to pick up and ask you to ask a question. So anybody with a question, this is a chance to ask a question. We are going to take a very few questions, and once again, I request just to give us maybe another 15 minutes, and we should be done so that we can take two or three questions, and then we just close. So let me ask Naisera Wanjiro Kimani. I can see your hand is up, so you can ask your question so that we can proceed. In the meantime, you can answer the poll questions that we are running. You're able to see some poll questions there, so please respond to them. But Naisera, please ask your question. Mute your mic. Sarah, you are not able to ask, communicate. Can we then have Christopher to ask your question, please? There's a hand for Christopher.
Yeah, yes, my name is Christopher. I'm the director of a group called Bulbul Environment and Waste Management. And I'm asking through this forum, because I can see the very most important people are here. I'm asking, is it possible? Because when I see plastics, I live adjacent the current neighborhood, which doesn't have a lot of problem in plastic bottles or plastic waste. Yet they do use those plastics. On my village, the other side, Bulbul, we have lots of problems because proper disposal is not practiced by our people. And when I look around Nairobi, the metropolitan, I see most of our problems in in waste management are in those areas that we call these slum areas, or those informal sectors. If you go like to places like Gong Mathare, you go like Kwale in Rongai, you also go to places like Kibera, Mathare, places like...
You can just ask your questions.
Now, my question is, will it be possible to push for plastic categories from 1 liter downwards? Because those are the bottles we find in our streets. Is it possible to ban them altogether the way that the government has banned these single-use plastic bottles in forest, in national parks? Because we have seen quite a big change in our national parks. Is it possible altogether in the whole country? Can we ban, or can we lobby for banning of these single-use plastic bottles below 1 liter? If people can be able to buy 2 liters, then share the sodas, rather than having these small, especially the 1 liter, half liter, and the 251s. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think I talk about a total ban of the plastic bottles. And of course, we would want to release our peers. I think it's another meeting. So let's just take one question from Gisore Nyabuti, and then the peers can respond, because I think that question was directed to the peers as he makes his closing remarks. Then we can run down. So Gisore Nyabuti. Are you able to unmute your mic?
Yes. Hello guys, I'm Gisore Nyabuti, chairman of Slum Going Green and Clean in Kibera. So my question goes directly to our able Christopher Kipto, so and also other big dignitaries. We have been working in waste management for 4 years, and the only thing is support is very hard to get, because at the moment we have like 1,500 houses managing their waste, but teaching these guys segregation is a big issue. And also I'm asking, can we get like capacity building on waste management so that the youths can take it as their daily job and as something to earn an income from? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think that's a very direct question. The first one, I believe also should be answered by the peers about the bar. And peers just informed me that actually late for another meeting. So I want to respond to those two questions at the next closing remarks. Then we can take maybe 1 or 2 questions from the other panel. So peers, please, can unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you very much, Henry. I'm not sure if I had the first question, but on the second question, I think someone was, I think Gisore was asking about whether it's possible for government to support capacity building. I think it is a good ask, and I just want to say that we will take up that. I already informed you, we have a communication and awareness team in the ministry that we brought on board to drive this issue of circular economy, because now we have a waste management bill and we have also a policy in place. We need to roll out. Kenyans need to understand what this bill means and what the policy means. So we will be reaching out to Kenyans in terms of education and awareness. This program has 3 parts. We are doing training of journalists, because we want a lot of our journalists to understand, because once they do understand, they will be able to communicate better. Number 2 is about advocacy. We have to do a lot of advocacy so that people get to understand what it means to move away from linear to circular economy. And then the final part of it is awareness. So we will be out in radio stations, TV stations, newspapers, trying to pass this message. But I think the best is this kind of interaction, where we work with especially Kara and others, because really you are the people who deal with the households. And I have been even trying to push this in my own household and trying to say, can I try and segregate waste at source? Can it be a must that in my house, no waste comes out without segregation? Of course, it can be done in my house, but after that, what happens when it comes to collection? How organized is it out there? So this is something that we want to focus on. We have already developed an action plan for Nairobi County, and we are discussing with NMS and the Nairobi County itself to see how to work on this to improve. So we'll be reaching out to many estates. Gisore, I think if Ayub is here, and I also asked the lady from NEMA to take your contacts so that we engage. I think we will be keen to engage some of this. And Kara, I think, Henry, you will be our contact point, so we can reach out a lot of this resident association. And since we will have another opportunity in the future, I think just any other questions that touch on us, let the representative of NEMA who is here, and if Dr. Ayub Macharia is also in this meeting, he will take it up, and then I'll pick them up. And I hope to see you soon, perhaps next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, PS, for your time and for your. We really appreciate what the government is doing, and we certainly are going to engage some more because there's still so much work to be done. So thank you, and you can now exit for your meeting.
Thank you very much.
So ladies and gentlemen, we had an interruption of the questions, so maybe I can take 2 or 3 more questions to any of the panelists, and then we can wind this down. So there's Francis Gidua. You can ask your question, please. Francis Gidua.
My question is, good evening, everybody.
Good evening, proceed.
Yeah, my question is, what is the level of our grassroots community engagement in terms of circular economy, and also do we have a model that is engaging both formal and informal sector in terms of waste management? Because I'm in the community health and safety, and I would feel that if there is a grassroots level engagement, if there is any, then we would be very much willing to understand the model at the grassroots level.
Thank you very much. And we'll get the panelists to answer. Maybe Jensen can tell us the model that has worked in Denmark, but also Daktari, Emma, and also Jace can also keep. But we also have one question from Andrew Mossetti. Andrew Mossetti. Andrew, there, Julia Yeko.
Hello, I'm here. You can hear me?
Yes, please proceed. A question?
Actually, mine is not a question, but it's just a comment on the question that was asked whether we should ban single-use plastic bottles. Yes. So I think it's not the right time to ban that, because it is at this juncture that we have so many industries that have come up to manage that. We have industries which generate premium quality fabric out of the waste PET bottles. We have others making shoes, others making household commodities, and actually the spectrum is very, very wide, and banning the single-use plastic bottles would not be a good idea economically and also ecologically. That's my opinion, but we can engage further on that matter.
Thank you.
If details are required.
Thank you. Julia Yeko. Julia Yeko. Imat Dovia. Okay. Imat Dovia, able to ask a question?
Good afternoon. This is not a question. However, this concerns the environment and the energy sector. I've sent in a note in the chat that Ethiopia and Addis Ababa has got a beautiful plant which converts all the waste into energy, and the whole city is powered by that energy. And it's a very, very clean process. It is, if you go to search engine and check up Addis Ababa waste to energy plant, I think this is a very, very important thing which the ministry should look into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have the last question from Infinix Smart 3. I don't know who that is. Infinix Smart 3 Plus. Okay, I think you can't. Juliet, you want to say something? Let I can see her.
Yes, what I was saying was, I was suggesting if it's possible that within Mathare, we partner with the different youth groups that are within, who are doing the garbage collection, to ensure that this circular initiative is achieved effectively. Because for one thing, we will be able to deal with the waste management and also create an employment. And
thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, and allow me to proceed to the next step. And I'm going to request our panelists to respond to any of the questions as they also make their closing remarks, because I know a number of responses has been made through the chat box. Most of the questions have been responded to. So just general remarks as you also make your closing remarks to the question. I'm going to start with Joyce Ashugu-Aweru. Perhaps you could add something on the model of engagement, the ban on the plastic, as you also make your closing remarks. When you go to the next event. So, Joyce.
Thanks, Henry. I think in closing, I just want to say thank you for this very timely conversation. And I look forward to participating in others. I love the engagement and the level of interest in the topic. I think in terms of level of grassroots sensitization, there has been a lot of gap in terms of the reach. Of course, this comes also from the way our education system is modeled, because this is not a topic that you will find being taught within our schools. And so I know our national government, and I know even through NEMA, that there are efforts to kind of now integrate circular economy and the different lessons that come from it into our curriculum. However, as an organization for us, we are willing to undertake training for groups that are organized, that are willing to collect. So we do deploy training for organizations and for community-based groups, actually, that are willing to start collection businesses. So even for Julie, who asked a question about Mathare, we are actually in Mathare. And so we would be happy to actually see how we can be able to scale up our operations and integrate with the people that she is working with. I think moving forward for us, what we would want to see is if anyone has a question or is interested in support from us, either for your residential associations. I've received a lot of inquiries about how can we support in different residencies. Kindly reach out to us. I've shared our number and our email address. We'll be able to respond and see how we can partner. Thank you, Henry.
Yes, for that. And just to add that under the partnership we just entered into, we are going to actively engage the resident associations. So very soon we'll be reaching out with information and means of working together in this regard. So Thomas Jensen, perhaps you also just respond to any of the questions as you also make a closing remarks.
Well, thank you so much, Chair, and thank you to the whole crowd for a very engaging discussion. To take some of the questions quickly, waste to energy as a solution to Dandora, inspiration for Ethiopia. The problem with the waste to energy is, as we know the technology now, it's more expensive way of doing energy. It's much more cheap to do geothermal and other things. So if you want to solve Dandora by waste to energy, Kenya Power has to charge more. Then either the government has to cover or the consumer needs to cover. And I don't think anything, as I know now, in Kenya will be politically viable. But in some, there's no, if you need to use these more expensive technologies, somebody have to pay, so that requires a political discussion. Another thing, should we ban the small bottles? Maybe you should, but I think it requires a more thorough analysis of how you bring up the quality of what we today call waste, so in the future it can be seen as resources. So instead of just targeting small bottles, make a thorough analysis of how can you raise the quality of materials to make sure that you keep them at the quality for a longer time so they can be reused. Last thing, I think Christopher said that the main problem with waste is in the slums, in the Kibera and other things. I personally live in Runda, in Nairobi, and I think I produce much more waste than others. I'm just lucky that it is being taken care of in a better way, so it's not visible. I think we should be very clear that this is not just poor people who generate waste. Actually, most studies show that it is the rich people who makes the most waste, and we should all take care that our waste is not going the wrong way. And I think in the richer resident associations should make sure that they have waste collectors who are responsible, that where the waste is being collected in a responsible way and sorted afterwards. And I know that in Kenya, it's very liberal. Everybody with a truck can actually be a waste collector. And maybe this is where you as residents associations should ask yourself, where is our waste going? Do we have a good service provider? Do they really, and ask them questions, because only that way we get accountability. So that's my encouragement to all resident associations today. Make sure that you know who collects your garbage and make sure that they dispose of it in a good way. And otherwise consider choosing somewhere else. Over.
Thank you very much. I don't know if your colleague Casper has anything.
Sorry, Casper, do you have anything to add?
Thank you very much. Well, first, I just want to say thank you very much, everyone, for engaging in the discussion and with some very great points on circular economy. I think I only have one point, and that is the point about incineration of waste, whether that is a good idea, a bad idea, because it's a better idea than dumping the waste on a landslide. But in the first stance, you should actually not burn the waste. You should set it out for recycling. You should use like the organic waste as a fertilizer, like regenerate new plastic from the used plastics and so on. So ideally, you wouldn't need to have, I mean, if we had a circular economy, at least a better circular, how we say, waste streams, then you wouldn't need, and you wouldn't have enough waste actually for putting it into the incineration plant. I think that's my main point, and thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. Finally, let's hear from Dr. Mambia from NEMA.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, participants, for the engaging discussion we have had so far. I think there were no particular questions to NEMA. Most of them were addressed by the Principal Secretary. And my only final remark would be that since we are all generators of waste, let us not assume it is somebody else's responsibility. And therefore, we have an opportunity individually to think of how best to manage our waste, whether it is within the residential area or office area, or even in while on transit. Don't look for a deterrent in order for you to be able to manage your waste better. I recall when the Nairobi City County was quite strict on waste management, we would cling very strongly to our bus ticket, because the moment you dropped it off, the council askari would be there to pounce on you and your 500 would go. We don't need that deterrent to be able to manage waste, because once that is gone, then once the bus exits or you exit the CBD, you release the waste and throw it badly. So we have to internalize that my waste is my responsibility, that it can actually be money, because the future belongs to those that innovate environmental solutions, because we are living in challenging times. Environmental challenges are diverse and unprecedented, and anybody is able to offer a solution to any emerging environmental challenge, including waste management, is where the money lies. And there's vast opportunities in all its spheres, be it education, technology innovation, business solution provision, or even citizenry education, citizenry attitudinal change. We have lots of opportunities for the artists. I know both those that musical artists or creative artists who do the actual drawings in environmental education. And there's also a lot of opportunity in partnerships and seeking synergistic ways of solving waste management together with climate change, together with water quality management, together with integrated wastewater management and others. So there's a lot of opportunity in environmental solution provisions, including research, and therein lies our chance to make Kenya a clean and healthy environment for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. for those remarks. And ladies and gentlemen, we've now come to the tail end of this forum. And I hope and trust that we've achieved the objective of creating more awareness about the issue of circular economy approach to waste management. Of course, this is just the beginning. There's going to be more of this engagement as we proceed to this approach to waste management. So as CARA, we are happy and ready to engage with various partners, government, private sector, development partners, just to ensure that we are changing attitudes, we are changing perceptions about how we deal with our waste, and we are able to embrace sustainable ways of waste management. What we are seeing is that we did run a poll earlier, and we can see that very few people have a clear understanding of circular economy approach to waste management. Only 22% say that they have a good idea what it is all about, but 23% say they have very little knowledge about that, and 32% says they have a good idea. So it means we still have to do a little bit of more education and awareness to ensure that we are moving together as a country and a population, and we are able to do what other countries have been able to do in terms of having this as part of the way they manage their waste. So with those remarks, I want to thank, first of all, our partners once again, Untitled Foundation, for the partnership that has made this forum possible. I also want to thank very sincerely our speakers. I think they've shared with us a wealth of information, and personally, I'm now better informed about what is happening in the country and what we need to do to ensure that we move forward this conversation. So Joyce Gashugu Aweru from PETCO, thank you very much for your presentation. Thomas Jensen and Caspar, I want to thank you very much for sharing with us the insights and the lessons that we're able to learn from what's happening in Denmark and other countries. Dr. Anne Omambia, thank you very much for the perspective from NEMA and the work that has gone so far in making sure that we have a transition. Dr. Chris Absentia, we appreciate him for creating time to be with us and also for sharing with us his perspective on the topic of discussion today. So all we can say is that go and practice what you learned, and let's all support the government and the various actors that are doing one thing or the other to ensure that we adopt this way of managing our waste. We'll work with our partners to have more of this kind of platform, and we'll be inviting you to continue learning and, of course, to engage. We're also going to go down to resident associations so that this message can start getting down to the household level and people can start changing the way they handle their waste. So I want to thank all of you again, the participants, for being with us up to this particular point. Without you being here, we could not have had the forum. Thank you also for creating time to be with us and for logging in and listening and participating actively in this particular forum. So with those remarks, ladies and gentlemen, let me say have a nice evening and be on the lookout for the next session of engagement. We'll share the presentations. We'll also share the recordings of this forum so that you can be able to listen to it more at your own time. Asanteni sana and have a nice evening. So you are free to log out. Thank you.